And we welcome you to Urbana High School's Oscar Adams Gymnasium. It's Spirit Week at Urbana High School, and we are proud to present Tigers Volleyball to you tonight on the Tigers Media Network. The Tigers lineup being introduced behind us tonight. The Tigers will take on the Ironmen of Normal Community High School. We hear it all the time in the media these days, signature wins. That's exactly what Urbana comes into tonight chasing. Normal Community enters 14-0. They are the best team in the Big 12 for volleyball this year. Urbana enters 9-14. They've had some big wins, and they look to get perhaps their biggest yet tonight here at home against Normal Community. I'm Joey Wright, flying solo this evening. Jason Liggett is behind the camera as we see the Tigers starters being introduced. They will need to play their best volleyball tonight to knock off a very good Normal Community team. I mentioned it's Spirit Week here at Urbana High School this week, and we are proud to congratulate the soccer team on an 11-0 victory against Peoria Manual just moments before we got going here tonight. Both teams wearing orange and black. That'll make our job a bit tougher. Nearly identical uniforms between these two teams here tonight. Both teams in the huddle. And, I expect Urbana to come out pretty strong. This team is riding the wave of they've hit momentum, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Some big wins at this point in the season. They've played well at tournaments, coming off a win on Tuesday against Danville High School at Danville. So we'll see if that can carry over tonight. Waiting to see which team will start with the serve. And it should be a fun one here this evening. Still waiting here. Looks like Maddie Sanders talking with Coach Erica Menig here on the sideline. Perhaps orchestrating their strategy. Looks like Sanders will begin the game on the bench. So we see Allie Henge is out there for Urbana. Tanaya Reinhardt is out there. Raven Russell, Kenzie Bostic, Kaylin Johnson, and Hannah Davenport. It'll be Allie Henges back to serve to start the game for Urbana. We're glad you're with us on the Tigers Media Network. We are underway. We're going to see some big hits from Normal Community tonight. They are a big team, a strong team. A lot of height, a lot of size for them. And we see that from Grace Cleveland as she spikes one to the court, gives Normal Community the opening point of the game. And back to serve, it'll be number 10, McKenna Barnhart. Barnhart, a senior. And that serve, a strong serve, goes to Sanders, who has entered the contest. And a big hit from Raven Russell. She'll be a key component of the Tigers' attack tonight. Tipped over the net. Tigers weren't expecting that. It's 2-0 Normal Community. Raven Russell spotlighted as the athlete of the week last week by our friend Stephen Thompson. Stephen Thompson usually helps with the broadcast. He's in the student section tonight, and a strong student section that it is. Blocked by Cleveland, it looked like, for Normal Community there. Raven Russell will spike it in, gets blocked, tipped around, and Grace Cleveland tips it over the net. It's 3-0 for the Ironmen. Normal Community off to a strong start. And the Tigers, I mentioned earlier, they are going to have to play their best volleyball tonight. Normal Community is 14-0. And a big hit there from Raven Russell. That's what the Tigers needed. It's 3-1, the Tigers on the board. And in fact, Raven was the inaugural athlete of the week by Stephen Thompson. It was the first column he penned in that regard. And Hannah Davenport over the net, a good serve, and spiked by Cleveland. There are no heights listed on this Ironman roster in front of me, but she is tall. She's very tall, very big, very strong. Yeah, about 8 feet tall, as Jason jokes. She's big. So it'll go back over to Community as looked like we had an extra ball around there. Normal Community did win the JV match. As this goes over, and it's Sanders now Bostic, and it'll be Johnston. Kaylin Johnston gets blocked, and it's tipped up by Bostic, and it'll be Reinhardt tipping it over. Now they bounce it around, and it goes out of bounds. It's 5-1 for Normal Community. Back to serve, looks like Leo Lasher. And it's Sanders now, it's Bostic, and goes to Johnston. Johnston taps it over, and it's a point for the Ironmen. They're going to say it was on the other side of the antenna. So nearly a big play for the Tigers. Instead, it's Lasher back to serve again. Lasher, excuse me. And it's Sanders. And out of bounds. Sanders did a good job of staying out of its way. It's 6-2. Tigers only down 4, and they could use a few points here. Don't want to fall too far behind early in this first set. It's Johnston, good serve. Normal Community in a good position to field it, and it'll be Cleveland bumping it over. Check that. McKenna Barnhart. And a good job. That looked like Raven Russell. The referee obstructed my view. They're going to say it was out of bounds. Looked good to me. And it's 7-2. Good serve from Cleveland. Davenport now to Johnston. And Johnston, it'll be Sanders hitting it over. And a good job by Community to keep it out of the net. Here's Johnston tipping it up for Bostic. Gets blocked. Out of bounds was the block. And it is 7-3. Tigers keep it within 4. They have not trailed by more than 5 to this point. And it's Sanders still back to serve for the Tigers. Matty number 10, Urbana's libero. And here's Community. Sanders sets it up. Good job by Urbana. And it's Cleveland. Now it goes to Maddie. Now here's Kaylin setting it up for Bostic, who tips it over. They're going to say that Urbana was in the net, I believe, or perhaps some other sort of infraction there. And the Tigers go down by 5 once more. It's 8-3. This Tigers team is very young. A lot of sophomores, a lot of juniors, not a lot of seniority. I believe Maddie and Jada Barbie are the only seniors on the roster. And in fact, they are. So this Tigers team definitely built for the future as they get that point. Bring it back to within 4. And that stays in. The Tigers cut it to 3. It's 8-5. And I mentioned earlier that the student section was very strong. We should see it grow as the night goes along, as float building is in progress. The Tigers student body busy readying their floats for tomorrow's homecoming parade. So when that concludes around 7 o'clock, they should begin to trickle in. And in fact, I think we're past 7. I'll check that here in a second. So we should see the student section grow in just a few moments. This is blocked. It'll be a point for Urbana. Exactly what they needed is Kenzie Bostic tips it over the net. It's 8-6. And indeed, it's 7:16 here in the Central Standard Time Zone. So it's going to get even louder here in the Oscar Adams Gymnasium as we move along. Urbana playing very strong volleyball here early on. And that's a point for the Tigers. Normal Community was in the net. 8-7, the Tigers bring it back to within 1. Tania Reinhardt back to serve. And a good serve it is. Nice arc to it. Blocked at the net. Nice job by Kaylin to just keep it alive. Even if the Tigers don't get this point, they've still fought hard for it. Should give them a little momentum. We'll see. It's going to be tipped over the net gently, and Davenport mishit it. Out of bounds it goes, 9-7, but great effort from the Tigers, especially there from Kaylin. She took a shot, stayed in the play. And back to serve for Community, number 2, Peyton Kelly, a senior. Normal Community's libero. Goes to Urbana's libero, Sanders. And Davenport will hit it over. Nice job on her part. That's going to stay in bounds. A tricky one there that the Tigers couldn't quite field. Just weren't quite in position for that one. It's 10-7. So Kelly still back to serve. And she'll do so. Nice serve. Bostic does a good job of keeping it in bounds. The Tigers cut it back to within 2. 10-8 is our score. If you're just joining us, I'm Joey Wright. And still back to serve, Kinsey Bostic. Bostic, a sophomore. And it's Sanders. Hit over. And Sanders couldn't quite get to that one. It's 11-8. I don't want to use up all of my material too early, but I'd also like to congratulate the freshman football team on a big win against Central earlier this afternoon. 56-0, I'm told, was the final score over at McKinley Field in Champaign. And that is tipped over the net. The Tigers cut it back to within 2. The freshman football team's win against Central noteworthy because the varsity teams square off Saturday afternoon at noon. It's the homecoming football game. We'll have that live on the Tigers Media Network. A big rivalry. Central has won that rivalry 14 times since the turn of the millennium. It hasn't quite gone Urbana's way as much as they would have liked, but that game certainly figures to be big on Saturday as Allie Henges took a shot to the face there on the spike from Community. She looks to be all right, but that was a hit. And she's going to come out of the game, as does Isabella Hall. And we saw Kaylin take a shot like that earlier, but Henges was a little more brutal. And speaking of Johnston, nice spike that will give the Tigers a point. It's 12-10, and Urbana facing up very well against this Community team here early on. I mentioned Community's team. Certainly one of, I said the best in the Big 12 earlier. Now, I'm not incredibly well-versed on all the Big 12 volleyball teams this year, so I might have been exaggerating that. But we do know that Community comes in here undefeated as per Max Preps. It's 12-11. The Tigers have cut it back to within 1. This would be a huge win for this Tigers team should they be able to seal the deal. And we're going to be tied at 12. Out of bounds by Community. We're tied at 12. That's I can't state how big that is this early for the Tigers team. They got to keep the momentum going. As this goes out of bounds to give Community back the lead. But certainly you can see the confidence that this Tigers team is playing with. And I spoke with Coach Erica Menning before the season on our fall preview show that we did about a month ago now. And she mentioned just how much more confidence this Tigers team had this year compared to last year. They're going up there hitting the ball. They're doing everything they need to do to win these games, to stay in these games. And that showed. We're tied here at 13. She highlighted that the team was much more aggressive this year. And we're seeing that early on. They're taking chances. They're making it work. And that's blocked. The Tigers lead for the first time tonight. 14-13 here in the first set. Kaylin Johnston back to serve. Doesn't waste much time. Out of bounds. It's 15-13. That stays in bounds on the serve from Johnston. 16-13 our new score. The Tigers up by 3 and a timeout taken by the Ironmen. You can see the confidence that the Tigers are playing with And really that's indicative of how they've played all season to this point. They've fared well in tournaments. They placed third in the Charleston tournament a few weeks ago, and I know they placed third in a similar tournament. And, I mean, you can see that just the success that they're having. I mean, the players are more confident than I've ever seen them in years past. In each of the 4 years I've been at Urbana High School, and they just feel like it's possible to come out and get these wins. 30 seconds left in the timeout. Normal Community already back on the court. But I'm loving the confidence I'm seeing Urbana out here with. You know, in talks I've had with Maddie and some other players, you know, this season, they're feeling really good about the team. I spoke with Tia Donovan yesterday. Looks like she's on the bench right now. That's out of bounds, 16-14. And, you know, she was pretty confident that the Tigers could come out and get the job done tonight. So that's big. Anytime you can get some confidence going. Not intimidated so easily by an opponent of this stature, of this talent level. 16-15 as that went out of bounds on the part of Urbana. Grace Cleveland is back to serve for Community. And that's out of bounds. The Tigers back up by 2, 17-15. And Sanders back to serve for Urbana. And a good serve, nice and low. Didn't clear the net by too much. Sanders a very good server, and that goes back to her middle school days. And that'll be a point for Community. This is a pretty good game. I guess that goes without saying, but you know, we're a 1-point game here this late in the going. 17-16. And Sanders has to hit it over. She'll do so. A nice job by Urbana to keep the play going. It's tipped over the net and out of bounds. A nice effort by the Tigers to keep the play going, and it pays off as they go back ahead by 2. 18-16. And that's authoritatively spiked back over the net. Looked like that was McKenna Barnhart on the spike there. One thing that's not going to work in Urbana's favor is the increased sense of urgency we're going to see here from Community. You know, they're a good team. They know they're a good team. They haven't lost yet this year. They don't want to lose their first game here on the road an hour from home. Tipped over the net. That's a point for the Tigers, 19-17. Didn't catch who tipped it over. The official's in the way. Just not his fault. It's just, you know, my vantage point. Isabella Hall is back in the game, I can tell you that. And Grace Cleveland out of bounds, 20-17, knocks over the tripod over there. There's no camera on it. Doesn't look like anyways. Or well, there might be a camera on that tripod, I'm not sure. The Tigers, the first team to 20. There's a camera on there, but not a good serve into the net. That's the first time we've seen that from either team tonight. If the Tigers can hold on here in the first set, it'd be huge. Blocked by Community. Urbana does a nice job of setting it back up. It's tipped over on the other side of the antenna, and the Ironmen bring it back to within 1. I'm not as well versed in volleyball as I am with other sports, but that's probably not a great admission to make, but you never want to go down, you know, lose that first set, because that just it means you're playing from behind the rest of the night, and it's not impossible to come back from dropping that first set, but against a team as talented as the Ironmen are, this first set is pivotal for the Tigers, and as we're tied at 20 now, these next 5 points will be very, very fun to watch. Here's Johnston setting it up for Bostic, and blocked. Tigers keep it alive. They've done a good job of doing that tonight. And we're going to see a spike. Falls right between Reinhardt and Sanders. the Ironmen lead for the first time in a while, and Urbana will take their first time out of the game. And such is the magic of the sport of volleyball. We've seen this game swing a few times each way. Just joining us, Community came out strong out of the gates. I think at one point they had a 6-1 lead early on. And from that point, Urbana has fought tooth and nail to get back into this one. They've been up by as much as 3 at some points here in the contest, but the Ironmen have gone back ahead by 1. Both teams now at or over 20. It's 21-20 our score. Very high pressure situation. I never want to make something seem more important than it is, but it does not get much more high pressure than this. I would say perhaps if this was the deciding set, obviously set 1, there's a little wiggle room, little room for error, but this is definitely a pivotal set here as we progress through the night's events. That's a point for the Ironmen, 22-20. And it's Davenport. That'll be a point for the Tigers. Davenport tipped it over the net, and Community couldn't quite figure out what to do with it. So now, we've seen the Tigers turn a 1-point deficit into a lead before. Allie Henges is back to serve. And a good serve. It's fielded by Community, and that will put them back up by 2. Leah Lasher there, I believe that was, on the spike. 23-21. Community 2 points away from taking this first set. Sanders goes over the net to their libero. And Cleveland missed it. Cleveland went for the spike and whiffed. 23-22, the Tigers bring it back to within 1. That was big. Grace Cleveland, the biggest and I would assume strongest player on this Ironmen team, totally missed a chance to make it set point. And that's blocked by the Tigers, went out of bounds. So now it's set point for the Ironmen, 24-22. And the Tigers will need to score 2 points here. They'll call a timeout. It's a win by 2 in volleyball. So they would need to score 2 points to effectively force overtime or a tied game, and at which point it would take 26 points to win, and so on and so forth. So this is a big timeout. You know, I imagine that Coach Erica Menig, I can't speak to the strategy component of what went on in that timeout, but I assume she was just telling her team, stay composed, stay in it, you know, don't give up. Big players step up to make big plays in big situations. As that goes over the net, and that'll be a point for the Tigers to give them their 23rd of the set. It's 24-23. And indeed, that rings true. Big players step up to make big plays in big situations. It's exactly that here. Caitlin Johnston on the serve. Goes over the net, and we're tied at 24. 24 all, and it will take at least 26 points to win this set. Caitlin Johnston back to serve again. Over the net, good serve. Goes over. Let's see what the Tigers can do here. It's set up for Russell, who hits it. Good hit. Goes over the net. And under the net goes the Ironmen player. Let's get her number on that. That was number 1, Jamie Vasilou. 25-24, set point for Urbana. It's Johnston on the serve. Goes over. Hit once, now twice, and 3 times. Out of bounds. The Tigers have taken set 1. Grace Cleveland hits it out of bounds. I can't I cannot state how big that win is in the first set. Almost speechless as the Tigers have taken the first set away from the Ironmen. Whew, I would say that some big players stepped up to make some big plays in that big situation. And we've reached our first intermission. Whew. Doesn't get much better than that. Oh. I was in the office of Athletic Director Steve Waller yesterday, and just to provide another account of how big this game is, we were talking just a little bit about Normal Community, and you know, he didn't write us off by any means, but he certainly highlighted that Normal Community 14-0, very good team, and even he was saying, you know, Mr. Waller was saying that this would be a pretty big win, a huge win. You know, pretty big doesn't come close to describing how big a win it would be should we be able to pull it off tonight. And I definitely don't want to dwell on that too much. I feel like I might have been doing that a bit in set one, but this win would be big for Urbana High School as a whole, Urbana Athletics, you know, the student body. It's Spirit Week. I mean, games mean more this week. And going into that pep assembly tomorrow, the school-wide pep assembly that we have on the Friday of every Spirit Week, you know, every year, every homecoming week, you know, this would be big. It would really jazz the volleyball team up as they move through their you know, rest of their schedule. Student body would be excited about it, I can tell you that. It would inspire the football team as they move into their big game against Central on Saturday. Arguably the biggest game, you know, of the football season for the Tigers. Not playoff eligible anymore after their loss on Friday to Pure Notre Dame, but certainly looking to break a long winless drought at McKinley Field, our home field. Looking to secure bragging rights against Central High School. Definitely a very winnable game for both sides this year. So this would be huge. This would be a incredibly big win. Both teams have switched sides, which is unfortunate because that might confuse me as they're basically wearing the same uniform. Perhaps the orange on the Tigers' uniform is a bit darker. Looks like they're both Nike uniforms. You know, they're both templated uniforms, so I guess that's what you get when you get two orange and black schools. Almost looks like some sort of a scrimmage. Again, a quick reminder that you can watch that Tigers football game. You can watch our coverage of that beginning at noon on Saturday. Game has been moved due to the Illini game tomorrow night. The Fighting Illini taking on the Nebraska Cornhuskers at Memorial Stadium, 7 o'clock. Or is that a 7:30 kickoff? 7 o'clock there, as that's a point for the Ironmen. Serving is Jamie Vassalou, a senior. Here's Sanders and Bostic. Now Johnston tips it over, and the Tigers on the board, their first point of the game. So back to serve is Allie Hinges. And that goes out of bounds, so Community ahead 2-1. Another thing to highlight for Spirit Week, it actually happened last week. Senior girls basketball standout Ariel Scott committed to the University of Illinois last week. Point Urbana on the spike. tied at 2. It's certainly been a big year for Urbana athletes on an individual level. Wrestler Luke Luffman, though only a junior, committed to wrestle for the Fighting Illini, beginning with the 2019-2020 season. Obviously, that would be his freshman year of college. So 2 Big Ten commits for the Tigers early on, and a spike from Cleveland puts the Ironmen up 3-2. And exactly what I was fearing. You know, I went off on that tangent, looked up, saw a player in an orange uniform making a play there, and got excited. So the Ironmen up 3-2. That tips the net. It'll still go over. It's set up for Urbana here. Reinhardt was the one who hit it. And in the net is Community. We're tied at 3. And it's Johnston. Tipped over the net. Urbana wasn't quite in position for that one. Sanders gave it a go. And it's 4-3. And I believe I heard through the morning announcements, which I read daily on Monday morning, that Maddie had, I believe, 56 kills at their tournament last weekend. As that's 4-4. We're tied now on the Tigers' point. Or was it? No, not 56 kills. It was 56 digs. So Maddie's pretty good at that, sliding in and getting under the ball, keeping the play alive. It's everyone else on the team who can kill it, as we saw there from Raven. That was tipped. I didn't catch who tipped it, but it's a point for the Tigers nonetheless. Or rather, the Ironmen. That's the uniforms there that have gotten me. I was so accustomed to them being on the other side of the court here. It's 5-4 Normal Community. And Johnston now to Sanders, who will hit it over. It's Cleveland there. Now Vassalou and Community now hit once. And Isabella Hall will tip it over. Normal Community in a good position to field that. And it falls. It's 6-4 for NC. Remember, the Tigers at one point in the first set were down 5. They're down 3 now, as that's ruled a point for Normco. 7-4. NoCo, there you go. Normal Community. Johnston and Isabella Hall over the net, kept alive. Johnston sets it up for Bostic. It's blocked at the net. Bostic hit it back over. Nice job from Kinsey there. And on the other side of the antenna and out of bounds anyways, it is 7-5. The Tigers bring it back to within 2. Big play there. Normal Community has made some unforced errors. That was really what we saw bring Urbana down the last time we were out here to cover a volleyball game. Just the unforced errors, the little things on the serve, and things like that. We've only seen that once from the Tigers tonight. They've really cleaned up their game since we saw them earlier in the year, and that was launched in there. I think that was Lasher that came in with that spike. That was a fireball that came in there, and Kalen just didn't have anything for it. Here's Johnston and Bostic. Grace Cleveland keeps it alive. And hit over. Johnston will set it up for Hannah Davenport. Kept up. Tipped up. Bostic hit it over and tipped back over. 9-5. So back to serve now. Peyton Kelly, their libero. Hit up. Johnston will keep it alive. And hit out of bounds. Not a whole lot the Tigers could do there. And they'll take the timeout. This ties their largest deficit of the evening, 10-5. Ironmen JV and freshman teams engage in some sort of, I don't know what you'd call that, noise making, or not a cheer, because they were doing it with the hands and trying to rally their team up or something. The JV team came out with the win. I'm not entirely sure how the freshman team did, because I wasn't here at that point. And here we go. Blocked by Community, and credit McKenna Barnhart on the block. Tigers down 6. This is their largest deficit of the night. So this is big for the Tigers and the Ironmen both. Davenport tapped over, and the Tigers cut it back to 5. That's exactly what the Tigers needed there, just to prove to themselves that they can score. I don't know quite where I was going with that, but it's 11-6. Bostic, and now it's Davenport. And hit, oh, that was more than hit over. Number 10, Barnhart. 12-6, that was incredible. Normal Community has found their strength this game. I'm seeing them hit it a lot harder than they did in the first game. Not to say they didn't have some hard spikes in our first set, but they're doing that to a higher degree in this game. Urbana wanted it to be out of bounds. 13-6, a 7-point lead for Normal Community. And what that's enabling them to do is they're keeping Urbana off guard. Urbana doesn't know if it's going to come in really hot, really fast, or if it's going to just kind of be blooped in there over the net. Tigers will bring it back to 6, 13-7. So Urbana's going to have to make that adjustment, and it'll be a tricky one to make. Obviously, they can't quite anticipate what Community is going to do on every play here. Henges on the serve. And it's Bostic. Here's Henges tipping it up. And infraction, 14-7. And that's exactly what I was just going to say. The Tigers can't, what they have to do here is they've got to be crisp. They can't make any unforced errors. You know, they got to just play their game, play a good, fundamentally sound game of volleyball, so that if they do mount a charge, if they do get any momentum going their way, it doesn't mean, you know, they're not going to end it on their own. That's exactly what I'm talking about, where in the net was Community, point for the Tigers. What I was going to say was that that's exactly what Urbana can't anticipate. It looked like that Normal Community is going to go up and spike it. Instead, they just lightly kind of tipped it. And it's Russell. Good job keeping it up. And Sanders over the net. This is going to be a pivotal sequence for both teams. Sanders keeps it up, but it goes out. Davenport couldn't quite get there in time. Doesn't apply to this last play, but the last thing Urbana needs is to mount a run, get 3 or 4 points in a row here, and have it end on something like a serve into the net. They've been pretty good about that tonight. Very good about that tonight, in fact. Johnston gets blocked, and it goes out of bounds. 16-8. I also don't want to write off this second set, but Urbana has to kind of mentally prepare for this third set if need be. Tipped up. And missed. That's the downside to what Community's trying to do. Kept themselves off guard a bit there. I don't think they knew quite what the plan was. And it's 16-9. Johnston now. Russell, good job. Good spike. And it's Kalen setting it up for Reinhardt. 16-10, back to a 6-point deficit. So Urbana mounting some momentum here. Johnston back to serve. She was the server for the final few points of set 1, the little comeback that Urbana mounted. And how big does that comeback look now? As they'll score that point to cut it back to within 5. Urbana's able to be a little more relaxed here because, you know, should they drop this set, the game's not quite over. It's provided them a little insurance here, and hopefully that can just enable them to play a little looser here, play a little more relaxed. That was out of bounds. That ball was out of bounds. $17-11. But I will say that I know that referee personally. Does a lot of games at the middle school. I do a lot of games at the middle school for public address announcing, that sort of thing. Very good official, one of the best in the business. We all miss a few calls. We'll move on. It's 17-12. I believe his name is Larry. I don't know. Blanking on the last name. But Larry's a good guy. He's one of the better guys you'll meet in the officiating business. That's blocked over the net. 17-13. It's a 4-point ball game. Maddie Sanders is back to serve. I don't think I'd rather have the ball in anyone else's hands. I mean, Caitlin's done a pretty good job tonight. And Grace Cleveland over the net. Stayed in bounds. Bostic blocked. Urbana looked like they kept that one going. Well, they're going to call it a lift. 18-13. Good serve. Hannah Davenport in position for that one. Isabella Hall. Not much of a defense for that. McKenna Barnhart with the spike, 19-13. Johnston sets it up over the net. Out of bounds. Nice effort. That was Tanaya Reinhardt who went out to try and make the play. 20-13. The Ironmen back up by 7. They've been up by 8 in this set. Out of bounds. Isabella Hall. A little too much on that one. 21-13. Timeout. Urbana, their second of the set. So, you know, the odds of an Ironman victory here in this set, pretty good. You know, I'm not trying to write anybody off, or I also don't want to talk very loudly here because everyone in the gym has gotten very quiet. But the Tigers do need to acknowledge that this third set, a very real possibility at this point. Normal Community would enter that with the momentum, obviously, as they looked poised to win this second set. So what Urbana has to do is just prepare, be ready for that. That third set, come out and fight and hopefully neutralize the adrenaline, the momentum that Normal Community will obviously have coming off a win. Should Urbana not mount this comeback, and it'd be a tough one to mount. The Tigers need 12 points to win. Urbana, or rather Normal Community, needs 4. So we'll see how it plays out. And it begins to play out in the Ironmen's favor, 22-13. Back to serve, Maggie Stevens, number 4, a senior in. And we'll see. It is Barnhart now. Johnston went over. I don't think anyone was expecting that. Out of bounds. 22-14. Brings it back to 8. 9 was the largest deficit of the game to this point. Of the match to this point. In the net, they're going to say that it was tipped by a Tiger player, whoever was over there. Might have been Bostic, might have been Reinhardt, I'm not quite sure. And it's back to a 9-point lead. Serving is number 2, Peyton Kelly. Reinhardt, nice job. That's like the baseball adage, hit it where they ain't. Reinhardt hit it over the net. No one from Normal Community was in position to play that. And it's Kinsey Bostic back to serve. Tigers will have to rattle off 10 in a row to get the win here. And now they'll have to rattle off 12 in a row. 11 in a row. I'm not good with math. Sanders to Bostic. Bostic up to Isabella Hall. Gets blocked. Bostic hits it over the net. Out of bounds. We will play a third here in Urbana. In what has been a very exciting night of volleyball so far. Looks like a coin flip here. Between, looks like Kaylin Johnston and Peyton Kelly. And we'll see if Urbana will stay on their same side of the court or switch it up a bit. I think they were given that option. I don't know if that... They'll move. We'll be back to where we were first set. And a minute 45 left to go in this our second intermission of the evening. Just joining us, it has been a great night of volleyball. The Tigers took the first set from the Ironmen in thrilling fashion, 26-24. Normal Community battled back in the second set, a 25-15 victory for them. And we'll play a third. I've highlighted throughout the night how talented of a Normal Community team this is. They enter this game 14-0 as per Max Preps. The Tigers 9-14. They've played a lot more games than Normal Community has through tournaments and things of that nature, and they've fared well at tournaments. It's been a pretty successful season for the Tigers volleyball team to this point, all things considered. I mentioned at the very top of the program, signature wins. We hear it all the time in the media. Coaches talk about signature wins for their program. Radio hosts and television analysts talk about signature wins when you're assessing a team's success in a given season. This would be the signature win of perhaps the decade for the Tigers if they could pull it off. I might be overstating that a bit, but I don't think so. The Tigers athletics program undergoing a bit of a turnaround. It hasn't quite been the few seasons that really anyone would have liked for most of our teams, and we're seeing that change here as we move along. Teams look very confident, teams that are very young and poised for success in the coming years, and this win for the Tigers would be huge. It would be more than huge. Tanaka it's not just that Community's a good team. They're an undefeated team heading into this one. They won 14 games in a row. And when you could hand an undefeated team their first loss of the year, that's big. That's something that you can, I mean, you'll remember that for a long time, even after high school. And what I've mentioned that, I mean, this would fire up the student body, you know, the other athletes. It'd be big going into Saturday's football game against Central. It'd be big going into future volleyball games. I can look. Our next volleyball broadcast is on senior night for the Tigers here. And that broadcast is on October 19th as the Tigers battle Monticello. Jamie Vassalou back to serve for the Ironmen. And we're about to get the third set underway. Everything we've played so far tonight has built up to this set, and the Tigers started out in the lead. 1-0. I believe that was Kaylin Johnston who hit it over, although I'm not entirely sure there. And it's Ashlyn Bland, the sophomore, to serve it. And we're tied at 1. Ashlyn Bland, not somebody who we've called out much tonight. Is now out of the game. Jada Barbie is checked in. Again, not someone we've called too much tonight. But it's interesting to see Coach Menig put in some new faces here in this third set. As that falls in between Kiera Thomas and Maddie Sanders. Again, Kiera Thomas is not someone who we've seen too much tonight. So, interesting here. As Barnhart had a little trouble picking the ball up. 2-1 is our score here. And Barnhart served to Sanders. Sanders will head it up to Bostic, who will set it up to Jada Barbie. A good job on her part to get it over. And it's Bostic hit high to Sanders, and Sanders to Russell. Raven Russell over the net. Both teams coming out with some energy. Johnston will give Urbana not the lead, but we're tied at 2. I jumped the gun on that a little bit. We're tied at 2, but definitely a big momentum play for the Tigers. Into the net. Sanaya Reinhardt, and that's not something we've seen much of tonight. I think I used that exact same line when it happened earlier. But the Tigers have really done a good job on their serves tonight compared to what we've seen in the past. That's hit into the net. Ties us back up at 3, so it's tit for tat, and then we've seen both teams make errors, that same error on back-to-back plays. That hit the roof, that hit the ceiling, and it gives Urbana the lead, 4-3. And it's Sanders to Johnston to Russell. Raven Russell, that was tipped by Community. It's 5-3 for the Tigers. Urbana out of the gate strong in the third set. Into the net. Community's not out of the gates weak by any means. Five to 4. Good serve. It's Sanders there. Now Johnston, and Johnston to Davenport, who will hit it. It is Barnhart there. Now it's Grace Cleveland who will hit it over. And that's Peyton Kelly knocking it out of bounds behind her. You know, I just had a thought. I mentioned earlier that Grace Cleveland might be the strongest player on the Ironmen team. But we've seen McKenna Barnhart make some strong plays tonight, so my apologies there for making an assumption that may be true, but also one that I would have no way of knowing the validity of before making the statement. Community scores at 6-5. And really, strength not so much a physical trait, but an emotional trait. But that's a whole story. That's a whole different thing. Hit right into the net by Barnhart. 7-5. So a 2-point lead, by no means a very comfortable lead, but also a lead nonetheless. That'll be Kiara Thomas back for the Tigers, and over the net it goes. Thomas, number 8, a junior. And that was hit with a little too much of an arc on it. 7-6. And that's Grace Cleveland. That might have gone out of bounds had she not touched it. It would have been close, but it's 8-6 favoring the Tigers. Serving is Kinsey Bostic. Bostic has had some big plays tonight. And you want to talk about big-time plays? There's one. Cuts the Tiger lead to 1. And serving will be Jamie Vassalou. Vassalou, a senior. Barbie will spike it over, but it gets rejected. Grace Cleveland and Leah Lasher were there to tie us up at 8. Vassalou still back to serve. And it's Thomas now. It's Bostic. Now it's Sanders who will hit it over. And a good job of hitting it over. It's Peyton Kelly hitting it over for Community. And blocking it, Grace Cleveland uses that height. 9-8. Thomas, now it's Bostic, now it's Barbie. And Thomas gives Sanders some trouble. She can't get to it. And a 2-point lead for Community, their largest of the set. Oh, how things change. 10-8. Thomas and Barbie. Barbie just over the net. I thought, well, I guess I thought wrong. 11-8, out of bounds. If I'm Coach Menning, I don't go quite to the timeout. The Tigers bench making some noise, as is the JV team behind them. Tipped over. 4-point lead for Community. I might call that timeout here, and they will. Erica Menning. Tigers coach calls a timeout. By no means the end of the road for the Tigers, but we're going to have to bow up here. Again, a reminder, Tigers football on the Tigers Media Network is Saturday at noon. As the Tigers battle crosstown rival Champaign Central High School. It's Tigers football on the Tigers Media Network this Saturday, noon Central Time. Join us. Blocked by out of bounds. So a 5-point lead for Community. 13-8. Hit over. Thomas to Barbie. And it goes to Johnston. Tipped up. Here's Sanders. Here is, I think that was Bland who hit it over. And Maddie Sanders in a perfect position to field that from Cleveland. Jada Barbie hits it over out of bounds. 14-8. We've seen the Tigers battle back from a similar situation in this match. They'll have to man up here and get the job done. It's 14-8. Hit over. Here's Thomas. Can't hit it all that well. 15-8. Manning doesn't want to go to that second timeout so early here. So the Tigers are going to have to play through this period of adversity on their own. The student section has risen to their feet. It's Davenport, it's Bostic, it's Johnston. A nice job by Kaylin Johnston. It hits the ceiling, throws off Community. They will recover, and they'll do a nice job of it. Grace Cleveland tips it over, and Sanders dove a little prematurely. 16-8. We saw the same score in set 2. Big lead for the Ironmen here. Let's see if they can keep the momentum going. You can see the momentum that they have in the pace that they're playing at. Sanders hits it over, and the Tigers will get back on the board there. Miss hit and went out of bounds behind the Ironmen baseline there. So it's Ashlyn Bland back to serve. Bland, the sophomore. Nice out of bounds. Almost a nice serve. It was fairly close to being effective. 17-9. And it's Sanders. Now it's Bostic, and Johnston blocked. 18-9. Back to serve McKenna Barnhart. Barnhart, it's Johnston, Bostic, Raven Russell over the net. I guess it was not tipped. I thought I saw it tipped. 19-9. Oh, so it is. Tigers were up 7-5. So that would make it a 12-4 run for the Ironmen. This timeout is big for Urbana. It's what I said in set 1. Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time situations or something like that. Big-time players make big-time. It sounds about like what I said. And we'll need to see that here. The Tigers have some big-time players. This is definitely a big-time situation. They will need to make some big-time plays. It's Sanders. Russell. Okay, it's tipped by Community here. And Cleveland knocks it over. It's going to hit the divider that is used to divide the gym into halves for functions, such as gym class. Hit up. Tigers are hitting it very high here. Out of bounds. Ironmen first to strike 20. Tigers down 11. Things look bleak, but not too bleak. I mean, they look pretty bleak, but not insurmountable. And 21-9. Not over by any means. Isabella Hall is in for the Tigers. She'll man the front with Kaylin. Then Bostic and Barbie behind them, and Maddie and Hannah after that. It's Bostic, now it's Hall. Nice job by Isabella Hall to keep that in. Stays in bounds, 22-9. Normal Community has traveled well. They've got some players here in the crowd. Sanders, Bostic, and Hall. That'll go Urbana's way. The Tigers get to 10. It's 22-10, so a 12-point deficit. Let's see who's going to go back to serve. It is Tanaya Reinhardt. Big-time situation on Reinhardt's shoulders here. She keeps it in bounds, and Grace Cleveland with the spike off of Sanders' hands, 23-10. 2 points away from victory now. Normal Community. And it's Johnston. Match point for the Ironmen. Their JV and freshman teams rise to their feet. And the serve, it's Reinhardt. Now Barbie and Kayla Johnston on the other side of the antenna. Normal Community battles back from a slow start, and they will emerge victorious against Urbana tonight. They dropped the first set 26-24, then 25-15 in set 2, and 25-10 in set 3. They improve to 15-0. They remain undefeated. Urbana goes down to 9-15. So the Tigers got off to a strong start, couldn't quite seal the deal, but definitely some positives for them to take away as they progress through their season. We have them now. One more volleyball broadcast on our schedule. That's on October 19th, their senior night against Monticello. We invite you to join us Saturday at noon. It's homecoming football on the Tigers Media Network as the Tigers battle the Maroons of Champaign Central High School. Should be a fun one, winnable game for both sides. Big implications riding on that game. So for the whole crew, Jason Liggett, I guess that's the entire crew outside of myself, Joey Wright. We thank you for joining us for this presentation of Tigers Volleyball on the Tigers Media Network. Normal Community wins. Thank you.